This story is titled, My Fiancé Left Me for My Former Friend, claiming he was better and richer than me, but a week later she was on her knees begging for forgiveness when she discovered he had taken out loans in her name. Hey Reddit, my name is Marcus, I'm 32 years old, and what I'm about to tell you happened about 8 months ago. I'm still processing just how satisfying this entire situation turned out to be. Seriously, grab some snacks because this roller coaster has twists, turns, and the most satisfying ending you'll read all week. Let me give you some background first. I work as a civil engineering project manager for a mid-sized construction company here in Atlanta. I'm not rich by any means, but I'm comfortable. I own a decent 3-bedroom house in a good neighborhood that I bought 4 years ago for $395,000. I worked my ass off to get where I am today. I started as a laborer right out of high school, going to community college at night while busting my back during the day. I worked my way up through the ranks over the years. No handouts, just pure grind and determination. I'm not some naturally charismatic guy who gets women easily either. I'm probably a 6 out of 10 on a good day, standing 5'9", with an average build and thinning hair that I keep buzzed short to deal with it. But here's the thing. I'm stable and reliable, and apparently that makes me absolute catnip for a certain type of woman. Spoiler alert, that type is definitely not the kind you want to marry. That's where Brittany comes into the picture. I met her about 3 years ago at my buddy's barbecue. She was 26 at the time, working part-time at some overpriced boutique in Buckhead, making maybe $27,000 a year if she was lucky. But damn, this girl was a solid 9 out of 10. Blonde hair, green eyes, 5'6", with curves in all the right places. The kind of woman who could literally stop traffic just by walking down the street. The contrast between us was pretty stark. While I had my own house and a stable career, she was living with 3 roommates in a cramped apartment in a sketchy part of town. She was constantly complaining about money problems. Her car was a beat-up 2008 Honda Civic that broke down every other week. And while she dressed nicely when we went out, I could tell she was stretching every single dollar to maintain that polished image she wanted to project. Being the nice guy that I was, I started helping out here and there. What began as me picking up the check on dinner dates gradually evolved into something much more extensive. When her car broke down, I'd Uber over and give her rides. When her roommates were being too loud for her to sleep, she started spending more nights at my place. What started as occasional sleepovers turned into her basically living at my house within about 8 months of us dating. Before I knew it, she had clothes hanging in my closet, her makeup products covering every inch of my bathroom counter, and somehow I was buying groceries for 2 people even though she wasn't contributing a single dollar to the household expenses. But I was completely whipped and didn't care about any of it. Brittany knew exactly how to play me, and she played me like a master violinist. She'd walk around the house in tiny shorts and tank tops, give me random head when I got home from work, cook dinner occasionally using ingredients that I had bought, and make me feel like I was dating an actual model. I genuinely thought I'd hit the jackpot with this relationship. The first major red flag should have been when Brittany started talking about wanting to get her master's degree in marketing. She'd sit there painting her nails with $55 polish while saying, "Marcus, I'm never going to make real money working retail. I need to elevate myself, but grad school is so expensive." She had done her research and found that Georgia Tech's MBA program would cost $46,000 for the full degree. Brittany claimed she'd looked into financial aid options but didn't qualify for much because her parents made too much money on paper. The catch was that even though her parents technically had decent incomes, they weren't helping her with anything financially. It was a classic middle-class trap where you make too much for aid, but not enough to actually pay for things. She'd sigh dramatically whenever the subject came up and talk about how she'd probably be stuck in retail forever because she couldn't afford to better herself. The way she presented it, her lack of education was the only thing standing between her and financial success. Like a complete fucking idiot, I offered to pay for it. "Really, Marcus? Are you serious? That's amazing. You'd really do that for me?" she said, her eyes lighting up like I'd just offered her the world. She jumped on me right there on the couch, and we had some of the best sex of my life that night. I was thinking with my dick instead of my brain, completely convinced that I was making a smart investment in our future together. In my mind, she'd get her degree, land some high-paying marketing job, and we'd become this power couple living the American dream. What a complete moron I was. Once Brittany started the MBA program, things got exponentially more expensive. Suddenly she needed a new laptop for school, a $1,900 MacBook Pro, because she claimed the regular models wouldn't handle the software requirements. Then came the professional wardrobe for presentations and networking events, which turned into a $3,400 shopping spree at Nordstrom and other upscale stores. But the biggest expense was when she decided that her beat-up Honda Civic wasn't professional enough for the student parking lot. I ended up co-signing for a lease on a 2023 Honda CR-V because, according to Brittany, she needed something that wouldn't embarrass her when she was networking with future employers and fellow MBA students. The monthly payment was $445, but at least it was reliable and would help her make the right impression. As her coursework intensified, Brittany cut back her retail hours to focus on school, which meant her already tiny income basically disappeared entirely. Suddenly, I found myself covering absolutely everything. And I mean everything. While she still wasn't on my mortgage, I was essentially paying her living expenses. Utilities, groceries, her car payment, insurance, gas, eating out, entertainment, and of course those monthly tuition payments that were bleeding my bank account dry. My monthly expenses went from a manageable $3,400 to over $6,300 almost overnight. I was still managing to save some money because my income was decent, but my emergency fund completely stopped growing for the first time in years. Brittany would thank me with sex and affection, so I convinced myself this was just a temporary situation. Once she graduated and landed that high-paying marketing job she kept talking about, she'd start contributing more to our shared expenses. The entitlement started creeping in slowly, so gradually that I didn't notice it at first. She'd complain if I bought the regular groceries instead of the organic, name-brand stuff she preferred. She wanted to eat out more often because she claimed she was too stressed from schoolwork to cook. Her beauty routine became absolutely insane and incredibly expensive. She was spending $220 monthly for lash extensions, $160 for professional manicures and pedicures, $350 for hair appointments every 6 weeks, and an absolutely staggering $450 monthly on skincare products from Sephora and other high-end cosmetic stores. When I questioned these expenses, she'd look at me like I was being completely unreasonable. "Marcus, I need to look professional for networking events," she'd say, with this tone that made me feel like an idiot for even asking. "This is an investment in our future." Our future? I was paying for everything. But apparently it was ours when it came to the benefits. The final straw in terms of her growing entitlement was when she completely redecorated my living room without even asking me. I came home from work one day to find $4,600 worth of new furniture, artwork, and decorative accessories that looked like they came straight from a basic Pinterest board. When I asked what happened to discussing major purchases like adults in a relationship, she said I was being controlling and that the house needed a woman's touch. The sex started declining dramatically around month 10 of her MBA program. Brittany was always too tired, too stressed, or had too much homework to be intimate. Our Friday night date nights, which had been a sacred tradition in our relationship, turned into her studying at the kitchen table while I watched Netflix alone on the couch. She'd come to bed long after I was already asleep and be gone before I woke up for work in the morning. I chalked it up to the natural stress of graduate school. Looking back, that was a huge mistake on my part. I convinced myself that once she got through the more demanding coursework, things would return to normal between us. I had no idea how wrong I was. About 12 months into her MBA program, Brittany started mentioning this guy from her strategic marketing class named Tyler. At first, the mentions seemed completely innocent. Things like, "Tyler thinks we should approach the project this way," or "Tyler knows someone who works at a consulting firm." But then the mentions became more frequent and significantly more detailed. Tyler drove a BMW M3. Tyler owned his own digital marketing consultancy. Tyler had clients like Pepsi and Nike. Tyler was only taking the MBA program to expand his professional network and learn corporate strategy because he was planning to scale his business nationally. According to Brittany, this guy was basically the epitome of entrepreneurial success. She'd come home from study groups at 11 p.m., talking nonstop about how brilliant Tyler was and sharing all his insights about entrepreneurship and business development. She started dressing up more for school, wearing outfits that seemed way too sexy and revealing for classroom presentations. Our conversations at home became dominated by Tyler's latest business advice, or some story about his impressive success. Meanwhile, I'm working 55-hour weeks managing complex construction projects, dealing with difficult contractors, navigating city permits, and handling budget overruns. I was busting my ass to fund my girlfriend's lifestyle while she spent her days daydreaming about some other guy's supposed achievements. The final red flag was when Brittany started going to networking events multiple times per week. These were always last-minute invitations where Tyler apparently had extra tickets to some business mixer or industry conference. She'd get dressed up like she was going to an upscale nightclub and come home well past midnight with elaborate stories about all the important people she'd met. When I suggested coming along to one of these events, she always had an excuse ready. They were student-only events, or invitation-only, or it would be awkward to bring a boyfriend. But she never seemed to have any problem bringing up how Tyler knew all the right people and was constantly introducing her to potential employers who could help her career. I started feeling like nothing more than a walking ATM. Brittany would kiss me goodbye in the morning, spend all day at school with Tyler, come home talking exclusively about Tyler, and then claim she was too tired for sex because of all the intensive networking she'd been doing. But I convinced myself that I was just being paranoid and insecure. She was ambitious and focused on her career, I told myself. Tyler was simply helping her make valuable professional connections. I was being insecure and controlling by questioning her dedication to her education and future. Looking back, I can't believe how naive I was being about the entire situation. March 18th. I'll never forget that date because it's when my entire world got flipped completely upside down. I was working from home that day, dealing with some complicated permitting issues for a major commercial project. Brittany had a late class that was supposed to finish around 2 p.m., so I expected her home by 3:15 like usual. When she walked through the front door at 2:45, she had this look on her face that I'd never seen before. Nervous but determined, like she'd been practicing a speech in the car during the drive home. Instead of coming over to kiss me hello like she usually did, she just stood in the doorway looking at me. "Marcus, we need to talk," she said, with no emotion in her voice whatsoever. My stomach immediately dropped. Every guy knows that phrase means your life is about to get completely destroyed. I could feel my heart starting to pound, but I tried to keep my voice steady. "I'm in love with Tyler," she said, delivering the words like she was reading from a script. "We've been together for 5 months. I'm moving in with him this weekend." 5 fucking months. She'd been cheating on me for 5 entire months while I paid for every single aspect of her life. While I was busting my ass at work 55 hours a week to fund her princess lifestyle, she was getting fucked by some other guy and carefully planning her exit strategy. The numbers hit me like a freight truck. 5 months meant it had started right around Halloween. All those study groups and networking events had just been elaborate cover stories for her affair. She'd been looking me directly in the eye every single morning, kissing me goodbye, telling me she loved me, and then going to spend the day with her actual boyfriend. The level of deception was absolutely breathtaking. "I see," I managed to say, trying to keep my voice steady and controlled. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears, but I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of seeing me break down emotionally. "I already packed most of my stuff," she continued, gesturing toward 2 large suitcases sitting by the front door. I immediately recognized them as the matching Louis Vuitton set I'd bought her for Christmas. $3,600 that I'd put on my credit card because she deserved something special for the holidays. "Tyler's really successful, Marcus." "Really successful," she said, with this tone like she was trying to justify her decision to herself as much as to me. "He's taking me to Vail this weekend to meet some of his business partners. He says I have real potential, and he wants to help me network with the right people." The audacity was absolutely breathtaking. She was essentially telling me that I wasn't good enough to help advance her career while standing in the house that I owned, wearing clothes that I had bought, after spending 3 years having me fund her dreams and ambitions. When I asked her when it had actually started, I wanted the truth this time. She had the decency to look slightly embarrassed for the first time during this entire conversation. "Right after Halloween, but Marcus, I didn't plan for this to happen," she said, like that somehow made it better. "Tyler and I we connect on a different level. He understands my ambitions in a way that you don't. He's going places and he wants to take me with him." Going places. Like my house wasn't good enough. Like my stable career and consistent financial support weren't taking her anywhere meaningful. Like the $31,000 I'd already invested in her education was just pocket change. "I understand," I said calmly. "I hope you two are very happy together." She looked genuinely surprised, like she'd been expecting me to beg or cry or fight for her. Maybe she wanted me to throw a tantrum and make her feel important and desired. But I was already thinking strategically instead of emotionally. She'd made her choice, and now it was time to deal with the consequences. "That's it?" she asked, looking confused. "You're not even going to fight for us?" "What's to fight for?" I replied. "You've been cheating on me for 5 months. You're in love with someone else. You're moving out. Seems like you've made all the decisions already. Marcus, I thought you'd be more upset. I'm processing right now. I'm just trying to understand the timeline and wrap my head around this situation. She shifted uncomfortably. Tyler will be here around 6:30 to help me move the rest of my stuff. That's fine, I said. I'll make sure to be out of the way. What I didn't tell her was that I'd be using those few hours very productively. After Brittany left to grab lunch, probably with Tyler, of course, I sat down at my kitchen table and started thinking strategically instead of emotionally. She'd completely blindsided me with this revelation, but that didn't mean I had to just take it lying down and accept being walked all over. The first thing I did was make a comprehensive list of everything I was currently paying for on her behalf. The numbers were absolutely staggering when I actually wrote them all down. Her MBA tuition, $46,000 total, with about $31,000 already paid out of my pocket. Her car lease, $404 per month for the Honda CR-V that I co-signed for. Her car insurance, $195 per month through my policy. Her phone bill, $90 per month as part of my family plan. Her health insurance, $255 per month through my employer's group plan. Groceries, utilities, and household expenses, approximately $850 per month. Her credit card expenses as an authorized user, approximately $300 per month on average. Miscellaneous expenses like dining out, entertainment, and her ridiculous beauty routine, approximately $100 per month. I was essentially funding a $4,300 per month lifestyle for someone who had just told me she'd been cheating on me for a third of our entire relationship. But here's the thing about me. I'm not an emotional guy when it comes to problem solving. I'm a project manager by profession and by nature. When there's a problem, you assess the situation objectively, make a comprehensive plan, and execute it efficiently. The emotions can come later. Brittany thought she was trading up from a stable, reliable guy to some hotshot entrepreneur with major clients and unlimited potential. She was making a calculated bet that Tyler's supposed success would completely replace my financial support and give her an even better lifestyle. That was an extremely risky bet, and I was about to make absolutely sure it didn't pay off for her. My first call was to Georgia Tech's financial aid office. "Hi, this is Marcus Thompson. I need to speak to someone about Brittany Martinez's tuition payment plan." After being transferred twice through their bureaucratic system, I finally got the financial aid director on the line. I explained the situation calmly and professionally. Brittany and I were no longer together as of today. I was the third-party guarantor on all her payment plans and financial arrangements with the university. I needed to withdraw from any future payment obligations immediately and permanently. "I'll honor the current semester since it ends in 7 weeks," I told them. "But I'm formally withdrawing from all summer and fall semester payment commitments. Please send me written confirmation of this change." They needed 48 hours to process all the paperwork and get everything updated in their system. But they confirmed that as the financial guarantor, I had every legal right to withdraw from future obligations. There was no legal requirement for me to continue paying once the current term ended. Next, I called my credit card companies. Brittany was an authorized user on both my American Express and Chase cards, the ones she used for all her shopping sprees and expensive beauty appointments. I removed her from both accounts immediately, effective today. No more $1,300 monthly shopping binges on my dime. Then I called my car insurance company and had her removed from my policy. She was driving the CR-V that I had co-signed for, but if she wasn't living in my house anymore, she needed to get her own insurance policy. I also called my cell phone provider and removed her line from my family plan. If she wanted to stay in constant contact with Tyler, they could figure out their own phone bills. The coup de grace was systematically changing every single password she might possibly know. Netflix, Amazon Prime, Spotify, Hulu, and even the Wi-Fi password for my house. If she wanted entertainment at Tyler's place, they could pay for their own subscriptions instead of freeloading off mine. But I wasn't done yet, not even close. Brittany had left behind about half of her wardrobe at my house. All the expensive designer clothes I'd bought her over the past 3 years. We're talking about designer jeans, an entire collection of Lululemon workout clothes, the $650 winter boots she'd claimed she absolutely needed for the 2 times a year it gets cold in Atlanta, and countless tops and dresses from Nordstrom and Anthropologie that I'd purchased during our various shopping trips. I methodically loaded every single item into garbage bags and drove straight to the nearest Goodwill donation center. I donated every piece of clothing, every accessory, every designer item she'd left behind, and made sure to get proper receipts for the tax write-off. If she wanted any of her clothes back, she could go thrift shopping like everyone else. The final touch was having a locksmith come out to change all the locks on my house. It cost me $280, but it was worth every single penny for the peace of mind and security it provided. I wasn't taking any chances of her coming back to retrieve things or trying to manipulate her way back into my house when Tyler inevitably disappointed her. By 6 p.m., Brittany's new reality was completely locked and loaded. Brittany came back around 6:15 with Tyler in tow, and I watched the whole scene unfold from my bedroom window. They pulled up, and what I immediately noticed was a beat-up 2019 BMW 330i with a dented front bumper and mismatched rims. Not exactly the impressive M3 she'd been bragging about for months. Tyler looked exactly like what you'd expect from Brittany's descriptions. Tall, skinny, with a man bun, wearing a suit that probably cost more than he could realistically afford. He had that look of a guy who says, "Let's circle back on that," in casual conversation and thinks he's incredibly sophisticated for drinking craft beer and talking about entrepreneurship. They loaded her suitcases into his car along with a few boxes of random personal items. I noticed Brittany trying to use her key in the front door, then looking genuinely confused and frustrated when it didn't work. She knocked on the door and I went downstairs to let them in. "Hey Marcus, this is Tyler," she said awkwardly, clearly uncomfortable with the entire situation. Tyler stepped forward with his hand extended in what seemed like an overly confident gesture. "Nice to meet you, man. Brittany's told me a lot about you." I bet she had. I shook his hand without saying anything in response, just looking him directly in the eyes. "Marcus, my key doesn't work," Brittany said, stating the obvious. "I changed the locks." "Why would you do that?" "You don't live here anymore." She looked genuinely hurt, like this was somehow unexpected or unreasonable. "I just need to grab a few more things from upstairs." "What things?" "My clothes, my makeup, some jewelry." "Already donated the clothes. Your makeup is in a box by the door." "What jewelry?" "My earrings, the necklace you bought me for my birthday, my rings." "Those were gifts. They're yours." I went upstairs and came back down with a small jewelry box containing the items she'd mentioned. She opened it and started looking confused and increasingly upset. "Where's the Cartier bracelet and the Tiffany necklace?" "Which Cartier bracelet?" "The one you bought me for Valentine's Day. It cost like $1,600. "Oh, that one. I returned it." Her face went completely white. "You can't return jewelry after 2 months. You can if you keep the receipt and the store has a good relationship with you as a customer." Turns out they're very understanding when you explain that your girlfriend was cheating on you while you were buying her expensive gifts. Tyler was starting to look extremely uncomfortable with this entire exchange. "Maybe we should just go, Brittany." "No, this is ridiculous. Marcus, you can't just take back gifts." "Watch me. Also, you might want to check your credit cards, your phone service, and probably Netflix when you get to Tyler's place." The realization was starting to hit her about the full scope of what I'd done. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that as of today, you're financially independent. Congratulations." She turned to Tyler with desperation in her voice. "This is crazy, right? He can't just cut me off like this." Tyler was studying his shoes like they were the most fascinating things he'd ever seen. "Let's just go, Brittany. We'll figure it out." They left with Brittany shooting me death glares, but I could see the panic starting to set in on her face. I went back inside, ordered a pizza, and had the most peaceful evening I'd had in months. Thursday morning, my phone started ringing at 7:15 a.m. It was Brittany calling frantically, and I could hear the panic in her voice from the moment I answered. "Marcus, I just tried to use my credit card for coffee and it was declined." "That's because you're not an authorized user anymore." "You can't do that. I need that card." "For what?" "You have a job. You have Tyler. Figure it out." "My job pays shit and you know it. I have expenses." "Not my problem." The calls kept coming throughout the day. Her phone had been shut off by noon on Wednesday, apparently because she'd never paid attention to when the bill was actually due or how the payment system worked. She started calling from Tyler's phone, from random numbers, and even had the absolute nerve to call my office and try to reach me there. Friday afternoon, she showed up at my front door looking completely frantic and desperate. I could see Tyler's beat-up BMW in the driveway, but he stayed in the driver's seat like a complete coward, unwilling to get involved in the confrontation. "Marcus, please, we need to talk," she said through the door. "We are talking. I got a notice from Georgia Tech about summer tuition. They said you withdrew from the payment plan." "That's correct." "You can't do that. I'm halfway through the program." "Actually, I can do that, and I did. You should have thought about that before you decided to cheat on me for 5 months." "This is fucking insane. You're destroying my future over a relationship." "No, Brittany. You destroyed your future when you chose to cheat on me with Tyler. I'm just not paying for it anymore." Tyler and I will figure out the tuition, but I need my credit cards back. I have bills. What bills? You don't pay rent. You don't pay utilities. Your phone is on Tyler's plan now, right? She looked trapped and cornered. I have expenses. Personal stuff. Like what? My lashes, my nails, my hair appointments. I can't just stop taking care of myself. The entitlement was absolutely breathtaking. She was worried about her beauty routine while her entire education was about to get flushed down the toilet. Here she was, facing the potential end of her MBA program, and her primary concern was maintaining her $220 monthly lash extensions. Brittany, let me explain something to you very clearly, I said through the door. I was paying for those things because you were my girlfriend. You're not my girlfriend anymore. You're Tyler's girlfriend. So Tyler can pay for your lashes. He doesn't understand how expensive it is to be a woman. Sounds like a conversation you should have with him, not me. She started crying. Real tears, not the fake manipulative kind she'd used to get her way in the past. Marcus, please. I made a mistake. A huge mistake. Tyler isn't... He's not what I thought he was. Now we were getting somewhere interesting. How so? He said he owned a consulting business with major clients. But Marcus, he rents a studio apartment in Midtown with a roommate. A fucking roommate. He drives his mom's old BMW and works for some tiny startup, making maybe $42,000 a year. He lied about everything. The irony was absolutely perfect. She'd left me, a guy with a stable career, his own house, and enough disposable income to fund her entire lifestyle, for some wannabe entrepreneur who was actually making less money than she did working part-time at the boutique. That sounds like a Tyler problem, not a Marcus problem. I can't stay at his place anymore. His roommate is some weird gamer guy who walks around in his underwear. There's no privacy, no space for my stuff. It's absolutely disgusting. Where are you staying? In my car. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. But then I remembered the 5 months of lies, the cheating, the way she'd looked me in the eye every morning while planning her exit strategy. Brittany, you made your choice. You spent 5 months planning your exit strategy, cheating on me while I paid for your entire life. You chose Tyler over stability. You chose excitement over loyalty. You chose to blow up a good relationship for some fantasy that turned out to be complete bullshit. Those are your choices, and these are your consequences. Please, Marcus, I'll do anything, anything. Anything except be faithful, apparently. She left crying, and Tyler never even got out of the car to comfort her or support her through the conversation. Over the weekend, Brittany's entire family started calling me with increasingly desperate pleas. Her mom, her sister, her aunt, and even her dad, who I'd met exactly twice in our 3 years together, all took turns trying to guilt me into taking her back. Marcus, you can't abandon Brittany like this, her mom said when she called Saturday morning, her voice full of accusation. She made a mistake, but she's learned her lesson. Mrs. Martinez, she didn't make a mistake. She made a deliberate choice to cheat on me for 5 months while I paid for her education and lifestyle. She's our baby girl. She's confused and scared. She's 26 years old, not a baby. And if she's confused, maybe she should have thought about that before she decided to fuck around on the guy who was paying her bills. You don't have to be crude. And you don't have to call me demanding that I financially support your daughter's infidelity. Her sister Sophia was even worse when she called Sunday evening with a full guilt trip prepared. Marcus, Brittany really loves you. She was just confused. Tyler manipulated her into thinking he was successful. She's the victim here. A 26-year-old woman got manipulated into a 5-month affair? That's your defense? She was vulnerable. She's never had a real relationship before you. Well, now she's learning what happens when you destroy a real relationship for fake promises. You're being cruel. She's sleeping in her car. She chose Tyler. She can sleep in his car. The best call came from her dad on Monday evening. He tried to pull some old-school macho bullshit that backfired spectacularly. Son, you need to man up and take care of Brittany. That's what real men do. They protect their women. Sir, with all due respect, real men don't pay for other dudes' girlfriends. Maybe if you taught your daughter about loyalty instead of entitlement, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Don't you dare lecture me about my parenting? Then don't lecture me about my responsibilities to a cheating ex-girlfriend. He hung up on me after that exchange. Meanwhile, Brittany was waging her own social media war. She posted a long, dramatic Facebook rant about how I was vindictive and controlling for cutting off her credit cards and tuition payments. She painted herself as the victim of an emotionally abusive relationship where I had used money to control and manipulate her. The post got a lot of sympathy at first, especially from her girlfriends who didn't know the complete story about what had actually happened. But then some of our mutual friends started asking pointed questions in the comments section. "Wait, didn't you cheat on him?" my buddy Dylan commented, cutting straight to the heart of the matter. "It's complicated," Brittany replied, which was her way of admitting guilt without actually taking responsibility. "How is cheating complicated?" my coworker Jennifer asked in response. Brittany ended up deleting the entire post after getting absolutely roasted in the comments, but not before I had screenshotted everything from my own records in case she tried to escalate things legally. Tuesday brought the legal threat that I'd been half expecting. Brittany had hired some bottom-feeder lawyer who sent me a demand letter claiming that I had promised to pay for her entire degree program. The letter alleged that stopping payment constituted breach of implied contract and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The letter was laughably unprofessional, full of typos, wrong legal citations, and basically just a template that had been downloaded from some cheap legal website. But it was enough to piss me off and make me want to respond appropriately. I called my buddy Kevin, who's an actual lawyer with a real practice, and showed him the letter. He started laughing immediately. "Marcus, this is embarrassing. No court would even look at this case. You were being generous, not legally obligated. You want me to respond?" "Yeah, but make it brutal." Kevin sent back a letter that basically told them to fuck themselves in proper legal terminology. He pointed out that I had no contractual obligation whatsoever to pay for Brittany's education, that she was an adult who could make her own financial arrangements, and that any further frivolous legal threats would result in a countersuit for harassment. We never heard from that lawyer again. But Brittany wasn't done embarrassing herself yet. She started a GoFundMe campaign called "Help Me Finish My Education," with a sob story about how her abusive ex-boyfriend had cut off her tuition payments to punish her for leaving him. She claimed that I was wealthy and vindictive, and that I was destroying her dreams out of pure spite. The GoFundMe was an absolute disaster. She raised a pathetic $465 total over 3 weeks, mostly small donations from people who didn't know the real story. But then people started sharing it in local Facebook groups, and our mutual friends began posting the truth in the comments section. "This girl cheated on her boyfriend for months while he paid for everything," one friend wrote. "She's not a victim. She's a user. I know Marcus personally, and he's one of the most generous, honest guys you'll ever meet." Another friend commented, "Brittany destroyed a good relationship and now wants strangers to pay for her mistakes." She ended up deleting the GoFundMe after it became a public roasting session. The $465 she raised wasn't even enough to cover 1 credit hour of her MBA program. Here's where the story gets really good, and where my professional background became incredibly useful in ways Brittany never could have anticipated. Remember how I mentioned that I work in construction project management? Well, part of my job involves conducting thorough background checks on contractors and subcontractors before we hire them. I have access to certain databases and professional networks that help me verify licenses, insurance coverage, financial stability, and criminal history. This is all perfectly legal stuff that helps protect my company from liability and ensures we're working with reputable people. I decided to do some digging on Tyler, just out of pure curiosity about what kind of man Brittany had traded me for. What I found was absolutely fucking gold. Better than anything I could have hoped for. This wannabe entrepreneur had some seriously dark skeletons hiding in his closet. He'd been fired from his last real job at a marketing agency for falsifying client reports and padding his timesheets, basically stealing money by lying about the work he'd done. He had $34,000 in credit card debt spread across 7 different cards, all of them maxed out or close to it. His student loans were in default, totaling $9,500 that he'd simply stopped paying. But here's the absolute best part. The piece of information that made all my research worthwhile. Tyler had an active warrant for unpaid child support. Turns out this piece of shit had a 4-year-old daughter in Charlotte with some girl named Vanessa. He owed $14,200 in back child support and had been actively dodging those payments for over a year. There was also a court judgment against him for $4,800 from a former landlord for property damage and unpaid rent. But wait, it gets even better than that. The consulting business he'd been bragging about to Brittany? It was an LLC that existed only on paper. The company had never filed taxes, never reported any income, never obtained any business licenses or permits. It was completely fake. The startup he actually worked for wasn't some prestigious tech company with major clients like Pepsi and Nike. It was one of those sketchy MLM supplement companies where he was basically a door-to-door salesman trying to recruit people into his downline. He was making commission-only income selling overpriced protein powder and energy drinks. Even the BMW he drove wasn't his. It was registered to his mother. He was driving mommy's hand-me-down car and telling people it was his own luxury vehicle. I had court documents, employment termination records, financial judgments, even photos of the child support warrant. This guy wasn't just broke. He was actively running from his responsibilities and lying about literally everything in his life. So I did what any reasonable person would do with this information. I compiled it all into a nice, neat package and created an anonymous email account. The subject line was simple and direct. Information about your boyfriend, Tyler. I attached everything I'd found. The court documents, the employment termination records, the photos of his baby mama and kid that I'd found on her public Facebook page, the business registration showing his LLC had zero activity, even the lien documentation on the BMW showing it belonged to his mother. The email itself was just one line. Thought you should know who you're really living with. I sent it to Brittany's Gmail account on a Thursday afternoon, and then sat back to wait for the fireworks. Friday morning, my phone rang at 6:15 a.m. It was Brittany, and she was completely hysterical, more upset than I'd ever heard her in the entire time we'd been together. Marcus, please, I fucked up so bad, please help me, please. What's wrong now? Tyler. He's not who he said he was. He has a fucking kid. A kid, Marcus? He never told me he had a kid. I tried to sound surprised. Okay, and? He's broke. He owes thousands in child support. He got fired from his last job for lying. His business is fake. Everything is fake. That sounds really tough, Brittany. It gets worse. When I confronted him about it, he admitted everything was true. But then he asked me to help him pay the child support. He said we were a team now and that I needed to invest in our future by helping him get caught up on his payments. The audacity of this guy was genuinely impressive. He was asking his sugar baby to help him pay for the kid he'd abandoned. It was like watching a masterclass in shameless manipulation. What did you tell him? I told him he was fucking insane. I don't have any money. You cut off all my cards. I can't even afford to get my nails done. So what happened? He kicked me out. He said if I wasn't going to be supportive of his complicated situation, then I could find somewhere else to stay. Marcus, I'm living in my fucking Honda Civic. The karma was so perfect it almost seemed like it had been scripted by a Hollywood writer. I could barely contain my satisfaction. I'm sorry to hear that, Brittany. Please, Marcus, I know I don't deserve it, but can I please just stay on your couch for a few days? I'll pay rent. I'll do whatever you want. I'm sleeping in a parking lot behind a 7-Eleven. This was the moment I'd been waiting for since she'd walked out of my house. She was completely broken down, desperate, with absolutely nowhere else to turn. It was time for the nuclear option. Brittany, let me make sure I understand the situation correctly, I said, my voice calm and measured. You cheated on me for 5 months while I paid for your entire lifestyle. You left me for a guy you thought was rich and successful. You had your family harass me with phone calls. You tried to sue me with some bullshit legal threat. You started a public fundraiser calling me abusive and controlling. And now that your fantasy boyfriend turned out to be a broke deadbeat with a secret kid, you want me to rescue you? There was a long pause before she responded. I know. I was stupid. I was selfish. I fucked up everything. But I learned my lesson, I swear. What lesson is that? That I had it good with you. That I threw away the best thing in my life for some loser who lied to me about everything. And that I'm a terrible person who doesn't deserve your help. But I'm begging anyway because I'm desperate and I have nowhere else to go. At least she was finally being honest about what kind of person she was. Here's what's going to happen, I said calmly. You're going to post on every social media platform you have. Facebook, Instagram, whatever else you use. You're going to tell the complete truth about what you did to me. You're going to admit that you cheated for 5 months, that you lied to my face every single day, that you used me for money, and that I did absolutely nothing wrong by cutting you off. You're going to apologize publicly and tell everyone that Tyler turned out to be a fraud who has a secret kid and is thousands of dollars in debt. Marcus, that's humiliating. Not as humiliating as sleeping in your car because you chose a deadbeat over a good man. If I do that, will you help me? I'll consider it. You promise? I promise I'll consider it. She actually fucking did it. Within 2 hours, Brittany had posted identical messages on Facebook and Instagram with a long, groveling confession that was more honest than anything she'd said to me in months. I need to publicly apologize for my terrible behavior and set the record straight about Marcus Thompson. For the past few months, I've been spreading lies about him being controlling and abusive, but the truth is that I'm the one who behaved horribly. Marcus supported me financially for over a year, paying for my MBA tuition, my car, my living expenses, everything. He was nothing but generous and loving to me. In return, I cheated on him for 5 months with a classmate named Tyler, who I thought was successful and wealthy. I lied to Marcus's face every single day while he was working hard to support my dreams. I planned my exit strategy while he was paying my bills. When Marcus found out, he rightfully cut off all financial support. Instead of taking responsibility for my actions, I tried to paint him as the villain. The truth is that Tyler lied about everything. He doesn't own a business, he's broke, he has a secret child he doesn't support, and he's thousands of dollars in debt. He used me just like I used Marcus, except Marcus actually had the means to support me and chose to do so out of love. I destroyed the best relationship I ever had for a fantasy that lasted less than a week once the lies came out. I am completely in the wrong here. Marcus is a good man who deserves better than what I put him through. I'm sorry for lying about him publicly, and I'm sorry for taking advantage of his kindness. I'm posting this because I owe him a public apology and because people deserve to know the truth about what really happened. The comment section was absolutely brutal. Our mutual friends, her co-workers, even people I didn't know personally were roasting her in the replies. Finally, some honesty from you, Brittany. Marcus deserves so much better. Girl, you fumbled the bag hard. A good man with his own house who pays for your school and you cheat on him? What's wrong with you? This is what happens when you're a gold digger, but bad at picking gold. Marcus, if you're reading this, you dodged a bullet. Don't take her back. Brittany admitting she's a cheating user. Character development, I guess. My personal favorite was from her former co-worker at the boutique. We all knew you were using Marcus. Glad he finally wised up. The post got over 250 comments, and most of them were negative. A few of her girlfriends tried to defend her with "everyone makes mistakes" bullshit, but they got shouted down by people who knew the real story. After she posted the confession, Brittany called me back around 8:30 p.m. Okay, I did it. I posted everything like you asked. People are being really mean in the comments, but I did it. Now will you help me? This was the moment I'd been building toward for weeks. The moment of perfect poetic justice. Brittany, I appreciate you finally telling the truth about what happened. It took a lot of courage to admit publicly that you're a cheating, lying user who destroyed a good relationship for a fantasy. So you'll let me stay at your place? No. Silence. What? I said I'd consider helping you if you posted the truth. I considered it. The answer is no. But I did what you asked. I humiliated myself. I told everyone the truth. You told everyone the truth because it was the right thing to do, not because I asked you to. You should have done that months ago instead of trying to destroy my reputation. Marcus, please, I have nowhere to go. I'm living in my car. You made your bed with Tyler. Now you get to lie in it alone. This is cruel. I apologized. I admitted I was wrong. You apologized because you're desperate and homeless, not because you actually feel bad about what you did. If Tyler had turned out to be actually rich, you'd still be with him, and you'd never have admitted to anything. That's not true. Brittany, if I gave you a time machine right now and let you go back to Halloween, would you choose not to cheat on me? Or would you just be smarter about picking your affair partner? The long pause told me everything I needed to know. That's not fair. That's exactly what I thought. You're not sorry you cheated. You're sorry you got caught. You're not sorry you lied. You're sorry the lies didn't work out. You're not sorry you used me. You're sorry I stopped letting you use me. Marcus, please, I'll do anything. I'll sign a contract saying I'll pay you back. I'll get a job and give you half my paycheck. I'll clean your house. I'll cook for you. I'll do whatever you want sexually. Please just don't leave me on the street. And there it was. The final offer. She was willing to prostitute herself to get back into my house and my wallet. Brittany, I wouldn't take you back if you were the last woman on earth. You've shown me exactly who you are, and I believe you. You're a user, a liar, and a cheat. You add nothing to my life except drama and expenses. Fine. Fuck you, Marcus. You're going to regret this when I get back on my feet. You're going to see what you missed out on. I'm sure I will. Good luck with everything. I hung up and blocked her number permanently.